Hi everyone, this is Michelle from Suzon Spice and Everything Nice. Thanks for joining me on another recipe. Today we're going to be making Lalo. In English, Lalo is known to be called jute leaves. I'll be using frozen Lalo as it's very hard to find in my area. Plus, I find it much easier to deal with than the fresh or dried kinds. Now let's go over our ingredients. Sliced onions, sliced bell peppers, frozen spinach, frozen jute leaves, hot peppers, which is optional, butter, tomato paste, and seasoned meat. I'll show you how I prep my meat momentarily, but you can use whatever meat you want or you can leave it out. Other options include adding whole crabs, crab legs if you so choose. But as always, the exact details and measurements of this recipe is provided in the link located in the description box. Next, let's talk about the Lalo or jute leaves for a bit. You can generally find them in Oriental, African, or Indian stores, and they come in many different brands. Jute leaves also go by the name of malokia or Jew's mallow. The one I have here is minced, but I do prefer a combination of both minced and whole. Unfortunately, the African store I found these in only had the minced left. Regardless, it still turned out great. To make these easier to work with, I would recommend letting it sit in the refrigerator overnight to defrost before using it. Then just for personal preference, I do like to use great value frozen spinach that comes in this kind of bag rather than the frozen block spinach of other brands. Now to prepare our meat, I'm using about 5 pounds of cleaned beef stew. See the link in the description box on how to clean meat for reference. The other ingredients includes thyme, epis, the juice of a lemon or lime, Goya adobo, seasoned salt, onion powder, and ground allspice. You can also substitute the allspice for ground girofle, aka cloves. Feel free to season your meat any way you prefer and just use this recipe as a guide or reference. For the thyme, you have several options. You can add the sprigs directly and remove the stems later. You can remove the leaves from the stems now, or you can use dry thyme. There's another option I'll show you later. Next, you'll add in your epis, the juice of that lemon or lime, onion powder, seasoned salt, ground allspice, and like I mentioned earlier, you can use ground cloves. And lastly, our Goya adobo. Go ahead and mix everything well to get our meat fully marinated. I do recommend letting this marinate overnight in your fridge for full flavor. Now that the meat is fully marinated, it's time to cook. As I mentioned previously regarding the thyme, another final option is wrapping the sprigs together with a piece of cooking twine. It will be much easier to remove this from the pot later on. Next, we'll add in about a cup of water, our sliced habanero peppers for some heat. Then we'll cover this and put it on high heat and allow it to come to a boil. Once it reaches a boil, you want to give it a good mix. At this point, you then want to reduce your heat down to a medium-high and let it cook for about 30 minutes or until the water is nearly dry. Be sure to monitor it periodically so that the meat won't burn. Now that the meat is partially cooked and the liquid nearly dry, we'll go ahead and remove our sprig of thyme. Next, stir the meat and build a well in the center. To the center, we'll add in butter instead of oil, as well as the tomato paste. Mix everything well as the butter melts, and make sure the meat is coated well with the tomato paste. And let the meat saute for about a minute or two. Now it's time to add in about a cup of water, just a little bit at a time. It'll help thicken the sauce without washing the flavor off the meat. It'll also help release the flavoring stuck on the bottom of the pot. Each time you add in the water, make sure to mix everything thoroughly. I'm adding a little bit more water and repeating the same process. The last bit of water is added in. You can easily see here that there's no more burnt scrapings at the bottom of the pot. Now before adding in the lalo, I'm going to add in roughly about half a cup of water. Mix this well and it should almost resemble a stew. I will now add in all of our spinach, then the lalo, here I just wanted to show you how the lalo will look like if it's not completely defrosted. It's really not a big deal if it's not fully defrosted. It'll just take some extra time to cook down. Now just take time to mix and fully incorporate everything together. Cover the pot and let it all come up to temperature. As it cooks, don't forget to stir it intermittently, especially to break up that block. You can see here that it's starting to get smaller and smaller. Once there's no more frozen pieces, you'll want this to cook for at least 30 minutes, or at least until most of the liquid has evaporated. But please don't forget to stir occasionally in between this. I also want to mention that if you're wanting to use whole crabs or crab legs, this is where you would add those ingredients in. I really wish I could have added some in, but that Corona got everything out of stock nowadays. The other thing for you to do here is to taste it to see if you need to add any more additional salt or goyo adobo to taste. Nearly half an hour later, it's close to being dry, and this is the consistency that I'm looking for. I'm now going to add in my sliced onions, as well as red peppers. Once I mix this in, I'm going to cover it and let it cook for an additional 10 minutes, and then we'll be done. Well, there you have it, guys. My personal version of lalo bœuf avec épinards sans l'huile. You could eat this with anything, the same way you would eat légumes. It's super delicious, healthy, and I really hope you give it a try. Well, that's it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.